Hello, my friends. I'm a little scared to make this video. Kind of a lot scared. I want to talk to you about something, and I'm scared. I'm scared that people will judge me. I'm scared that people will not believe me. I'm scared that people might love me a little less. But I need to move past that. I need to know that God loves me and I love me, and that's what matters. I want to talk to you about my identity, about my gender identity and about my sexual identity. Because they're not quite typical. I mean, what about me is typical at that point? I am non-binary and I am demisexual. I want to talk to you about what these things are, what they mean to me, how I discovered them, and why I am coming out now and at all. I'm also reading off a lot of notes because I wanted to make sure that I was saying the right thing. Also, I know that some people might wonder why I didn't tell them. Some of you I may have mentioned it to. Some of you I haven't. And it's partly because this is a conversation that I don't really want to have a whole lot of times. If you have an atypical identity, you are expected to kind of tell people about it. If you have a typical identity, people aren't expecting you to say, yeah, I grew up thinking that I was straight, and then I turned 22 and I realized, yeah, I am straight. You don't need to have that conversation. And for me, sometimes it just hasn't come up in conversation. And I don't really feel the need to bring it up. It's just a part of who I am. Maybe it's come up in conversation, maybe it hasn't. It's not that I'm excluding you from my story. It's just that I just can't be bothered telling everybody. But also some people just aren't safe. I'm going to talk a bit about that later, but some people I'm just worried about how they might react. And I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out where that is for you. I am non-binary and I am demisexual. A non-binary person is somebody who doesn't identify as strictly male or female. For some non-binary or NB people, NB, very cute. For some of us, they are averse to being gendered in any way. They will have they, them pronouns. They will have gender neutral names. They will dress very androgynous. For others, like me, which is kind of apathetic about the whole thing, I feel very unattached to gender. It doesn't factor into how I see myself. But if somebody calls me a she, her, which they often default to because I look very feminine, that's okay. If somebody calls me a he, him, especially online when it happens, I'm not going to correct them. I don't care. Somebody calls me a they, them. I really like that. I dress feminine because it's easy, because it's fun, because my face definitely lends itself to that. I guess like non-binary woman is a good category to put me in because my identity is definitely non-binary. It just doesn't come into how I see myself, but I know the world sees me as a woman. I know the world treats me as a woman. And that's kind of the demographic that I do need to live in. And I guess for me, when I say that it doesn't factor into how I see myself, essentially, like, if identifying as a gender was like being offered tea or coffee, no thanks, I'm just not thirsty. Like, if I woke up tomorrow in a world where gender didn't exist, I wouldn't have an identity crisis. If you feel like you woke up and gender just wasn't a thing, and that would make you really uncomfortable because no, I'm a man, or no, I'm a woman, that really signifies that you identify as your gender. You are connected to your gender. I'm not. I just before I learned what non-binary was, if I was listing adjectives to describe myself, listing woman or girl kind of felt forced. Whereas I know that it would come naturally to a lot of women. And this might come as a surprise because I appear very feminine a lot of the time. The simple explanation is that I like getting pretty. And my features lend themselves very easily to that. But pretty doesn't equal female. There are plenty of women who don't doll themselves up but feel very much like women. There are plenty of women who might have plain or even masculine features but absolutely feel like the women they are. They will proudly call themselves women because that is who and what they are. I just dress up pretty because it's fun, not because I'm a girl. And honestly, there are plenty of men who wear makeup, and like the guys in the French Quarter Versailles back in the days of Louis XIV with their makeup and their high heels and their wigs. Like, they knew what it was about. I also know that there might be people out there, even people on my friends list, who might dismiss me as wrong or misguided, who might even think this is a part of my mental health issues. Also, that they don't need to believe that some people's gender identities are a little bit different. It's kind of like coming out as a unicorn. Just can't exist. Especially when you consider that in a lot of communities, and by a lot of definitions, being non-binary comes under the transgender umbrella. The gender I identify as doesn't line up with the one that I was assigned at birth. That's the definition of transgender. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to change anything about my body, but that's the category that I can be put in some places. And I've seen people I know share posts about the LGBTQIA plus community that tell me, you're not a safe person for me to talk to. I don't think you'd believe me. I don't think you'd accept me. I don't think you'd respect me. And I'm a little afraid that you might not love me in the same way. And I want you to know that if you are sharing posts like that, if you are sharing anti-trans, anti-gay posts, you're not converting anyone to the right path. You're not converting anyone to the correct way of thinking. All you're saying is, if you're questioning, if you're uncertain, if you're unsure, if you're different, don't you dare come to me, because I will judge you, because I don't really want you. Let's talk about the only one who can judge me. When I discovered that I was non-binary and demisexual, which we'll chat about the sexuality thing later, and I did discover it. I didn't decide it. I just realized that that's the way I am. I battled against a whole lot of shame and self-loathing. That was until I realized that I was worrying more about the judgment of other believers than I was just resting in the knowledge that God loves me. I am non-binary and demisexual. That's just who and what I am. I didn't make a choice about those things. They're a part of the fabric of me. And because I also believe that God knits us together in the womb and that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, I couldn't help but draw the conclusion that that includes those of us with atypical identities. He made us, he loves us, and he does not make mistakes. Let's get into a bit of theology that some people might very easily dismiss, and that's okay, but this is just where I understand things. God made them male and female. Yes. He also made morning and evening, and yet we have afternoon. There are gray areas all throughout creation, and yet there are things that aren't mentioned in the beginning, and yet there are beautiful examples of the masterful hand of a creator. And all throughout history, in every culture, there have been stories of a third gender. People outside of the binary throughout generations of recorded medicine. Not just now. This isn't a new thing. There have been evidence of chimeras, now known as intersex people, people who have undefinable sexes, people who have all sets of genitals, no real genitals, partial of everything. This is the gray area. This is the afternoon. I do not believe that God makes mistakes. I believe that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, as are those of us who aren't typical. Those of us with neurodivergence, who spice up the world with our brilliance. Those of us with remarkable things like synesthesia. I can feel the texture of words when I read them. It's not in the Bible, but it's certainly not a mistake. There are gray areas. There always have been. And if there's a message that I want people to take away from this, it's a message for the people who, like me, exist in that difficult crossover between religion and faith and an atypical identity. Please know that God loves you as you are. He crafted you as a masterpiece. I don't believe that he expects you to conform or change this part of you. Not this part. There are many ways that God asks and expects us to change. He asks us to be more loving, more patient, more kind, more forgiving. He asks us to assess our lives and behavior and align ourselves with him and his will. But if he made you musical, if he made you a good speaker, if he made you nurturing, if he made you good at being solitary, if he made you non-binary, if he made you gay, if he made something in you, the very fabric of you, I do not believe it's a mistake. If it doesn't stop you from doing the main things required of believers, which is following the two greatest commandments, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love others as you love yourself, and following the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, I don't believe that God needs you to change those other things. He wants you to change your heart. I don't think he needs you to change your identity. Some people also believe that those who become gay or trans were exposed to things early in their life that influence them, because people can't possibly just be born that way. People can't possibly be created in that way. I grew up in the most conservative Christian environment you could possibly imagine. I'm not talking just Christian family. I'm talking, people joked that it was a cult because it was so insular. I lived in enclosed Christian communities until I was 16. One of them was a Christian camp and convention center, the sort of place where you visit when you go on a church camp. I lived in one. My parents helped run it. And then I lived at a Bible college. And again, my parents helped run it. It wasn't something where we lived there while my parents were studying and then we moved. We lived there for 7 years. I was going to Christian schools, raised by the most straightest arrows you could imagine. I was surrounded by faith, by religion. I did not have any influences of any kind of gender or sexuality. I was just only exposed to the fact that women were women, men were men. Gender roles. I was not exposed to anything in music, in television, in film, not in the people I met, nothing. And yet, when I played house with my friends, I was the only little girl who didn't kick up a stink if I had to be daddy. I didn't care. I didn't see the difference between being a mummy or a daddy. I just didn't care. It didn't affect me. There was a regular occurrence playing the male roles in games because I was the only girl who didn't care. When I was a young teen, I developed a character, a pirate. And that pirate, that character just didn't seem to have a gender. I loved the stories of female pirates who disguised themselves as men, and this character was my escape, where I didn't need to be soft or pretty. I would just be mysterious them. I would just swagger around. I would just dress in this gender-neutral pirate outfit and just swagger around. And even then, we'd play a game where I'd be a dashing male hero. Again, I'd be the dude because I was the only girl who didn't mind being a dude. I had girls get crushes on me because apparently one of them told me I had boy energy but not scary. That's NB power, baby. But all this while growing up in an environment that constantly pushed traditional female roles on me. And I'm talking the first community I lived in, women weren't allowed to wear pants. They didn't permit them. That's how traditional we're talking. This had to be in me for it to develop and exist for this long. No one told me that a person could be in a gray area, but somehow I knew that I didn't fit anywhere else. That seed was already planted, and it was determined to grow. How did I realize that I was non-binary? Kind of funny, actually. I was hanging out with a friend, and somehow I think it's Shania Twain who did the song, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. That came up in conversation. And I said, that song is so silly because there's no such thing. There's not a thing. No one feels like a woman. And she looked at me oddly and just went, well, I feel like a woman. Don't you? And that was the first time I realized that somebody actually did feel their gender. Somebody actually did resonate with their gender. Somebody actually did identify as their gender. That for some people, gender is more than just a label given to them by society that they have to wear whether it fits or not, but it's actually an intrinsic part of the way they see themselves. And she asked me, what do you feel like? And I think I said, I feel like a shape. I feel like a shape with a face. That's what I feel like. I don't feel like a woman. I never have. I thought woman was just a label that you had to tick in a box to get through society. You had to choose one, and that's kind of the one everyone picks. We started talking about gender, realizing the differences in our feelings and experiences, and that for her, womanhood was a part of how she saw herself. But for me, gender was like an uncomfortable afterthought, a thing I had to pack in my bag because my mum told me to, because I'd probably need it, you know? It wasn't something I celebrated. It wasn't something that I really felt fitted me. It was something that I felt uncomfortable ticking off on a form, a jacket that I wore but was clearly made to fit someone else. I'll tick female on a medical form so they know what pipes they're working with, but when the only option for gender on a form that isn't medical is male or female, it's uncomfortable. It's been uncomfortable for a long time before I had the words for it. And I had to learn that if I wasn't non-binary, it was uncomfortable. If that wasn't an option, I would be uncomfortable. I'm still happy with she, her. I know that's what I look like a lot of the time. But if people throw in a they, them, it makes me really happy. And if somebody accidentally mistakes me for a he, him, I don't care. I'll answer to that as well. I'm happy being called beautiful, gorgeous, pretty, handsome, remarkable, dapper. I love being called handsome, to be honest. And I coined a phrase for another non-binary friend, beautisome handful. It's a portmanteau of beautiful and handsome. I think it's the perfect non-binary compliment. I know people call me lady, woman, girl. I get it. That's what I look like. It's not a mistake, really. People are just saying what they see. But for me, I'm a person. I'm just a person. I'm just a little guy. I'm just a person. And I would appreciate being called a lovely person rather than a lovely lady. I'll often refer to myself as a man or a guy or a boy, just as a bit of a palate cleanser, away from the overtly feminine tones of lady, woman, girl. It's also because, to me, sometimes the terms are interchangeable. I'm just a shape with a face, after all. Now on to sexuality. I am demisexual. It's very similar to asexuality, and for a long time I thought I was asexual, so I'll just explain that first. An asexual person doesn't experience physical or sexual attraction. They might feel romantic attraction and develop emotional connections and fall in love. Aromantic is the term for people who don't experience romantic attraction. I know some people think it's silly to have all these labels, but tell me, how many of you were excited to put the label of boyfriend or wife on your partner? If they said, we don't need labels, let's just be together, like, would you be cool with that? Or do you really like being like, you're no longer my boyfriend, you're my husband? Isn't it nice to have labels so you know where you stand? So think about that. Next time you hear about all these crazy labels, think about how many times you use labels in your life. It is nice. Even if you don't label your sexuality, even if you don't say, I am heterosexual, I am cisgender, you still use a lot of labels in your relationships because it helps make things make sense. So, asexual people might experience physical desire without that desire being attached to a particular person. Demisexual people are very similar to asexual people, but when they develop a strong emotional connection to somebody, there's a chance of developing physical attraction as well. And this only happens once or twice in a lifetime. So we don't experience physical attraction at all without a strong emotional element. And even then, it's probably only going to happen once or twice. We're kind of like those birds that mate for life. I thought I was asexual for a very long time. I wasn't interested in boys, as interested in boys as my friends at school were. I also wasn't interested in girls either. I had a couple of crushes, but it was more because they were boys who were nice to me. And I thought they looked nice. They were nice to look at. And they were nice to me. But I wasn't like, I really want to kiss all these boys. As I grew older, I was interested in romantic connections, but still not really the physical stuff. I was pursued by men, but was kind of oblivious to the whole thing. I just want to talk, which is kind of frustrating for people other than me. I hadn't really been considered pretty either until I went to the city, and suddenly I blossomed or something, and I was apparently a catch. I also think my intelligence was more appreciated there than it was in my hometown. I did end up in a relationship but it didn't go well. I agreed to a relationship on the terms that nothing sexual would happen. I wasn't interested. I wasn't ready. I liked him romantically. I liked talking to him, and I learned that I liked kissing, but I didn't want anything more. This man broke the promise real fast. And I think he had what turns out to be a disturbingly common attitude that you can fix someone with force. If somebody is uninterested in sex or uninterested in sex with your gender, then you just need to show them what they're missing out on. It happens sometimes with gay women, with lesbians. A guy will think, well, what they really need is like a good man to show them what they're missing out on. Doesn't work, and didn't work on me. I had some situationships after that. I loved the guys romantically. I knew they were good looking, and looking at them made me happy. And there wasn't really much real attraction. And again, happy to kiss, not much interest in anything else. I want them to know, literally, it was not you. You are absolutely gorgeous. You're wonderful. I'm just not wired that way. I didn't learn about asexuality until my mid to late 20s, and then everything fell into place. And I continued on like viewing people aesthetically, believing that I would probably never experience attraction. And I was okay with that because my experience with my first boyfriend really warped my ideas of physicality, so I didn't really want that. Then I met my partner. My partner is very good looking, like objectively, although I didn't know that at first. We met when he commented on my blog, and then we started emailing from there. We did Skype calls, and again, I liked looking at him. It made me happy. We developed romantic feelings and wanted to pursue a relationship. He knew that I was asexual, and there might never be like that aspect to a relationship, but we still wanted to explore it. It had been long distance, so he came down for a visit. And when I first saw him, I still felt that comfort and happiness that I had felt through our Skype calls. But after a couple of days, it shifted, and I realized for the first time in my life, I was attracted to someone. I was like the little penguin that found their mate. The thing people don't realize, and maybe don't want to acknowledge, is that asexuality and demisexuality are still queer identities. They're still members of the LGBTQIA+ community. If you're ace or you're demi, you're still not straight. The one person I ended up with, then the one person I ended up being attracted to is male, and people assume that I'm female, so it looks like I'm straight. But what if I'd bonded with a woman or another non-binary person? I sometimes feel like to queer communities, ace and grey ace identities, such as demisexuality, aren't seen as legitimately queer enough. And to people who don't like queer folks, we're seen as the acceptable sort of queer because we're not getting up to as many sexual shenanigans as the other naughty queers. But we aren't straight. That's just the truth of it. We aren't straight, and we do come under that umbrella. So, why am I coming out now? And why come out at all? Well, I'm not jumping on the pride train, even though the timing of this video may look suspiciously like that. And even on the topic of pride, this is something that I chatted about with somebody who said, I don't know about the pride thing. Pride is, I've seen posts saying like pride is a sin. And so Pride Month is sinful. And even this person saying pride isn't a good thing. So why are people like getting all open about pride? Pride is also the opposite of shame. Pride Month isn't about saying, I'm really cocky and smug about being queer. Pride is saying, I'm not ashamed of who I am. I am not going to be fearful about being proud of who I am. Tell me, are you proud of your kids? Are you proud of your significant other? You can walk around with your significant other and you say, I'm proud of them. I'm proud to be out here with you. I'm not ashamed of you. I'm proud of you. Not I'm cocky and I'm smug and I'm arrogant. No, you're proud. You have a sense of pride. You have a sense of like, I am feeling good about like standing here and being who I am and being with you. And it's the opposite of shame. That's all pride is. That's what pride is about. Not being afraid, not being ashamed. That's Pride Month. But why am I coming out now? It's not to do with Pride Month. It's actually because a small UK magazine reached out to me a little while ago. Their focus is on uplifting the voices of underrepresented women in music. And they found my disability-focused music and wanted to talk to me. I wanted to be as open. I wanted to be open with them. I told them, hey, just so you know, I identify as non-binary or a non-binary woman, as my experience of the world is very much that of a woman. I want you to know that up front, rather than like interview me for a women's magazine and then see me reference my non-binary identity down the line. They were lovely about it. They asked if I was comfortable being put in the same category as cis women and trans women. And I said yes, because my lived experience and the way I'm treated is definitely that of a woman. So when I'm talking about my experiences, that's still definitely like the world I'm coming from. And then when the interview questions came, a whole lot of them were focused on my non-binary identity. The interviewer said that I didn't need to answer anything that I wasn't comfortable with, but I thought, no, it's time to be out in the open. Then another magazine reached out for my perspective about being a non-binary person with a disability. They might have heard about me through the first magazine, because they were also a UK magazine. And I realized, if this part of me is going to become public, I want to talk about it on my own terms, explain who I am and how I came to know myself. I also talked to my parents about it. Like I mentioned before, they're the straightest people you can imagine. I came out to my mother many years ago. She didn't understand any of it, but she loved me and she tried to understand me. She was also lovely about referring to me as a person more than a woman. My father many years ago had said that nothing would stop me from being his daughter. And when I came out to him quite recently, I told him that phrase had made me worried about telling him. He took it all in his stride, and I explained that being non-binary didn't stop me from being a daughter, a sister, an auntie. And in the end, he once again said that nothing would ever stop me from being his daughter. And he held me. And I knew that meant that he loved and accepted me for who I was, even if he might not understand. There are many people who don't know, who won't know until they've seen this video. I haven't known how to tell everyone in my life. Like I said earlier, having an atypical identity is hard because it puts pressure on you. If you're straight and cisgendered, you never have to think, how do I approach this person and tell them I'm a woman who is attracted to men? Because that's already what they assumed. Like, being atypical means that if you suddenly start talking about it, people will say, like, hey, I didn't know that about you. But if you tell them privately, then they might ask you why you didn't tell them sooner, And honestly, you don't want to have to always declare facts about yourself. If I declare these, do I also have to declare, like, I've started drinking coffee. I never used to drink coffee. And now I've started drinking coffee. Is that big enough to declare? Also, I used to be a massive Coke drinker. Now I've cut down on Coke. Like, will I declare that as well? It's hard to bring these things up in conversation. When I started realizing it, is that the point where I start having conversations with people? How are you going? Oh, I'm good. Like, yeah, did some shopping, went to see a show. Yeah, by the way, I've just realized that I'm non-binary. How do you do it? It's hard. I've mentioned my gender identity in conversations over the years to some people, explaining occasionally that I feel more like a person than a woman. But I'm not ticking off a list of everyone that I've told. Some people give me the vibes that I mentioned earlier, that maybe they're not safe people to come out to. So they're not the people I would reach out to and say, hey, I have something to tell you. So yeah, that's my coming out video. That's the whats, the whys, the hows, the whens, everything you could want to know. And now I just want to go on being myself. My wonderful, beautisome handful, shape with a face self. If you're watching this and you didn't know, I don't mean any hurt by not telling you. Might have just not come up in conversation. Maybe you're somebody that I was a little nervous about telling, and this is the easiest way for me to do it. Maybe a bit of both. If you're out there and you're questioning your gender identity, your sexual identity, try not to be too afraid. You can love you. You will find people who love you. Just try to be you. Also, if you're in the know, you'll know that I'm wearing some important colors on my face. You try to figure it out. Yeah. That was this. Filming it. Writing it was hard. Filming it was hard. Now I've got to edit it and upload the damn thing and have the courage to do that. I hope that people will still like me. Why do I think that way? Why do I think that way? Why does the world make us think like this? Why is this still the world that we live in? Where I am just the way I am. I am just the way I am. And I didn't choose it. And yet I'm afraid. I'm afraid that people might not like me, that people might be accusatory towards me. I'm afraid because I am a certain way. And that's part of why I'm doing this. Because I am afraid. I'm 34. I'm 34. And I started discovering this about myself maybe 6 years ago. And I've been afraid. And I'm nervous whenever I tell somebody because I'm looking at their face and I'm wondering. I'm wondering. Sometimes I only tell people if I'm seeing them in person because then I can see their face. And I can see if they still love me. So maybe some people, if I haven't told you, it's because I just haven't seen you in person. I haven't been able to sit down and have a conversation with you. Because I want to be able to see your face. And know that you're still gonna like me. Because that's the world that we have created. But this is my part in softening that world just a little bit. Okay. That's that. That's my coming out video. Oh my gosh. And to friend. You know who you are because I am calling you just friend. You were there in that first conversation. You were there in so many other conversations that helped me figure this out. And I thank you so much. I thank you so much. Because you helped me see a lot of things. Thank you, friend. Okay. The shape with a face is clocking off. Much love. Bless.